Let's record
Oh,
this.
you might be recording. I'm just checking.
It is recording.
There it is.
All right, so I'm an idiot. I'm going to shut up now.
No, I was probably thinking we were recording from the very beginning, but we may not have. So what's the new normal? Maybe take a moment to just think about what is this new definition of normal for you? And what we're going to be sharing in just kind of 30 seconds. So then after we do our 30 seconds, we're going to invite some crosstalk where maybe Sarah has a question that she might want to ask Patrick, or Patrick might have something he wants to ask Chris. So we can kind of establish some crosstalk and just share with each other our own kind of like thoughts and professional opinions on what our new sense of normal is. So maybe we'll give you guys a minute or two just to think about, and like, how would you construct the definition of your new normal?
Can you say that again, Jace? You want us to construct what we would like our new normal to be, or what we expect our new normal to be?
What is your new normal currently? So this whole sense of your new normal life, your new normal profession, what does that look like right now? Like your new sense of normal. Some of us might still be still e-learning. Some of us might be in person. Some of us are just joining us right now. Hello, how are you?
Betty, what's up, dude?
She's still muted. Let's unmute her.
Yeah. I'm unmuted now. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
All right. So right now we're just taking a moment. We're just going to get right in the mix of things. We're going to talk about what's this new normal? What does this look like? We're going to be going around the horn, and everyone's going to have 30 seconds to share what's their definition of the new normal. What does this look like? How can you best describe it? And then we're going to invite some crosstalk. So maybe you might have questions for somebody else about their new definition of normal, just to kind of not only just kind of maybe develop a professional understanding, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Maybe we'll give people a few more minutes just to kind of phrase how would they describe their new normal.
Is there an order?
I'm just going to call on people.
Okay.
I'll probably do it around the horn based on what I see on my grid view right now. Because I'm not sure if you know this, but Pat, you're the top of my grid view right now. So I'm going to call on you.
Well, my new normal. Man, that's loaded. So it changes every day. It changes every day, but new normal. I feel like we're spoiled in Vietnam though, because we have so few cases. So it's really hard for other people to connect with it. But life kind of feels closer to as it used to before we went on online learning. You're like, yes, I'm still social distance. I'd say the hardest part is catering to kids that don't want to take their masks off during PE. Like, it has to be optional, and you need to cater your lessons around that. So if we're outside, and Chris knows what I'm talking about, it's extremely hot right here right now, like extremely hot. We just got blasted
10 seconds.
Heat wave. So basically my new normal is learning how to adjust in order for people to all be engaged, even if they're using masks by choice.
All right. Thank you, Pat.
Sorry, I'm a chatty Cathy, dude.
What's that? Yeah, you are chatty Cathy. I put that 30 seconds in just for you.
Hate you.
Sarah, what is your new normal and what does it look like?
Okay, new normal. We are still on virtual learning for another week before we go back. We are in the process of waiting for information to find out what processes and constraints are coming up. So that's causing a lot of anxiety with the uncertainty and not knowing. There's changes, like Pat said, every day. It's exhausting. So I feel exhausted with the constant changes, and being told to be flexible and adaptable as much as possible is great, but it's a pain in the ass too. We have a circuit breaker. It's a 3-2-1 stage, and we are currently, we'll be breaking the circuit stage 3, June 1st.
Okay.
The end.
The end? She's gonna use up all your time. All right, Chris, you got 30 seconds on the board.
Yeah, I guess similar to what Pat said, everything feels pretty much back to normal for us, so that's a bit strange. But at school, I guess just the new normal is having kids do PE with masks and always trying to be adaptable to how whatever we're doing, is that safe with the heat that's currently here, and just everything that goes around that. So just trying to, I guess, minimize the amount of strenuous exercise and just adapting according to how things will look with masks on. And
10
I
seconds.
guess for the kids that don't want to take their masks off, so I guess currently we've just been looking at a bit of like net games unit where they are separated most of the times and just keeping one equipment per person.
Do you work with Pat closely?
Not closely. I follow all of you guys on Twitter, and
Okay.
I guess that's close enough.
Chris and I used to work more closely last year when I was the AD, because we would go to the meetings and stuff like that. But Chris and I still try to hang out every now and then, not work-wise.
Okay.
But we're in the same conference. That helps answer your question.
All right. Letty, you got 30 seconds on the clock.
Okay, my new normal is waking up and just being with my family the whole day, basically. Trying to do some exercise, physical activity, whatever it is in the morning, and then doing home learning with my kids in the morning. And then in the afternoon is when I get to work, and in the evening. So with my husband, we take turns, and our life has changed completely. So very, very family-based, and trying to figure out my life, juggling work and family time. 10 more seconds.
Yeah. Oh, 5
And
minutes.
then when I go out, just like with the mask, just adjusting my life as I can.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, John, what is your new normal and what is that going to look like?
Well, I think at the moment, the new normal is virtual learning and trying to have some sort of innovation so that to keep the kids interested, the students interested. Because I think they get lost pretty quickly, which probably keeping relationships going is a struggle, particularly online. And that's been one of the really, really important things, is those relationships with kids, and they'll do anything for you, but keeping that's been a challenge. But that's the reality of it too. Probably being organised so you can get up in the morning to get out, do your exercise, get back, and as Letitia said, manage your own family as well at home, because we've got 3 kids, and also trying to manage their emotions because we've got our daughter's just graduated, grade 12, but is having no graduate. It's all online. So there's a lot of sadness and emotions there as well, and all the moving. So for me, the normality of the stress there is something that every day. We're probably getting used to, looks like, potentially a mix of online and, virtual learning and real-time learning. I don't know if anyone has that happening, but that's one of the things.
We're going to be talking about that next topic, actually.
Yeah, and probably spending more time, the normal will be spending more time on classroom management and, with relation to social distancing, etc.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, John. And yeah, I can just imagine your family right now, especially with everything going on, your daughter, grade 12 year. It's very frustrating and very emotional for a lot of families right now. And I could just imagine. So for me right now, my new sense of normal is trying to get that consistency back for the kids. We've had them for 2 weeks now, and my goal every day is just to have those kids expect something that's consistently there. Just even how, in terms of my expectations with the social distancing, how our lessons look, try to make it as much as it was in the normal as it was before COVID-19, we all shut down, but then respecting our new guidelines, but then trying to be consistent in a time of everything's up in the air and uncertain. I wanted those kids to know that when they're stepping into my classroom or my teaching space, that this is going to be the one thing that's going to be consistent for them, just to give those kids like that rock, that anchor that they needed, especially now with their wellness. Okay, that was my 30 seconds. Now, let's invite some crosstalk. Patty.
Hey, Jace, I think it might just be helpful. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you had a decent amount of flexibility when you started, didn't you? Like with equipment and stuff?
Our guidelines gave us the flexibility. Like when we established it, our guidelines, like kids could share equipment. We advocated they have to be able to share equipment. or else it's going to turn into like line after line of fitness back in the 1950s. And we told them, our administration's like, that's not what education looks like. That's not what 21st century physical education looks like. We need to be aware of what's going on right now, but we also need to be aware of what quality teaching looks like at this point in time.
Yeah, the reason I asked, I think it's important. Like, obviously, we want everyone to be safe and stuff, but the ability to advocate for your program. So that's the reason I brought it up. Good job, dude.
So I was actually going to ask John a question. So with everything transitioning out, like how supportive has your school been in terms of giving you some flexibility to just be ready to, as you make your exit from South Africa? How supportive has your school been with that and supporting your needs right now, as not only as a teacher, but as a parent and a member of the school community?
They've been pretty good, actually. Talking generally, we actually haven't had many people who have taken repatriation flights out. Most people have stayed here, and our plan was to fly from here back to Australia and then fly on to Indonesia, but we've had to change. Those plans have had to change in that we're going to have to stay here now and go from here. So the school's been very good in relation to that. I probably know more about what's happening behind the scenes just simply because my wife's an administrator. And they are very open to that. They're certainly looking after us, and if we've got to stay here, they're going to look after us. As far as the kids goes, they've tried to bend over backwards for students with regards to grade 12 graduation, grade 8 promotion into grade 9, grade 5 so from elementary into middle school. But they are very, very aware of the government, and they need to make sure that they do adhere to what the government says. And that's probably been one of the big things here is that a lot of what we are doing is, if the government says this, the school is actually adhering to it because of the consequences if they don't. So, things like the grade 12s, since I think we're week 10 or something, but since in March, we went on March break and then we never went back. So the kids didn't even get time to know that they were leaving. It was like we went on holidays and that was it. So that's been really difficult for students. And I think for us, one of the important things is just the Zooms every week to try and keep those relationships going and for the mental health of the kids as well. So, but the school's been, both ends actually, both here and Jakarta, very understanding of the situation for us, but also for different families. Now, some of the families aren't very happy and don't understand. So some of the parent town halls that they've had have not been overly positive by certain people. But, at the end of the day, the school's working within the guidelines that they've got, and also the fact that we think South Africa is still at the beginning of this whole pandemic. And that's probably that's the big thing that nobody knows is where is South Africa within it, although they went into lockdown very early, which was really good, but where's it going? So, and they're talking not until potentially August for the peak to hit. So that's a long time. Yeah.
All right, thank you, John. Does anybody have any question for somebody when they mention something in their 30 seconds?
I don't have a question, just a comment, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's a safe place.
I was going to say, like what you said, Jace, about consistency and being the one place where there is consistency for the students. So important, and something that we will certainly be advocating within our program when we do get to create the processes, is that there is some sort of consistency and the kids have that rhythm and consistency and knowing that they have that anchor, as you called it, which I really like that metaphor.
No, thanks. I kind of figured everything right now is like a storm in the ocean, and that's actually coming from the quote we put out with our students is just like every storm, this too shall pass. And that's really hit home with me is like, yes, right now this is a storm. Storms are unpredictable, but you always have that one place that you're just kind of anchored to that kind of grounds you and keeps you kind of in a safe place. One thing I was going to ask Pat and actually everybody who's moving forward is, what have been some of the guidelines your administration have been given you going forward? Like what do you know at this point already?
Phys ed wise?
Phys ed wise, school wise, everything wise.
So when it comes to phys ed, they kind of let me take the reins and I just come up with the ideas and then I have to get approval for it, but it's pretty much up to me. School wise, we set up a lot of social distance, like lunch. We changed lunch to, because we used to have middle school and high school all together, but our cafeteria is not big, so now it's staggered. So like one group will go to advisory, one group will go to recess, and one group will go to lunch, and there's a three-way cycle to do that. So that's one of the protocols that's been from the beginning, and that will not change the rest of the year. Another thing we've done is, because it's been really hard to social distance, people lining up for lunch, we drew X's everywhere, like even outside, like not even a place you would line up, just to remind people that if you're tossing the ball around or something like that, to stand on an X, and stuff like that. We also, another guideline we have is scattered dismissal. So like to avoid crowded hallways for each class during passing periods. So one group of classes will let out 3 minutes early, one group of classes will let out 2 minutes early, one and then a minute early, and then one even does it a minute late, just to avoid crowding in the hallways and stuff like that. So I guess in a nutshell, I mean, I could go on and on, but there's been a lot of focus on how we can maintain social distancing and still have an effective school day.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's very similar to what our school's doing. Everything's been, how do we minimize the traffic but maximize the experience? And that's really been the idea behind everything. Does anybody else want to share how their school's been handling and preparing for the arrival of students?
I have a question actually. Our school is still closed, but I'm wondering, because many families left and even teachers. So for those students who left, are they having some sort of online schooling, or are we covering those kids who are, it's not their fault that they left? How is your school handling that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So we're in the same situation. We had a lot of families who are still out of Macau. I think it's up to 20 or 30 families within the entire school. In one class alone, I have 4 students out of 24 who cannot re-enter Macau. And they still, so for my classroom courses, I also teach humanities as well. I just have everything posted on Google Classroom, and they can kind of follow along as we go through with our lesson plans and activities. For PE, it's been a lot of, I gave them a project before they came back, so they have to complete a project, but the school gave us actually told teachers, when you go back, it is back to normal. The online live lessons do not have to happen anymore. We got to give a live lesson per class once per week for 80 minutes, and then be alive for or be available for office hours to just have conversations and chat with kids once a week. So they said those stop, those do not have to go forward anymore. How you support your students is up to you. I've had students join my class with Google Hangouts. We actually had a mock national court hearing, because my grade 9 students run their own country for their humanities course. So kids were suing each other. So I had one student joining on her laptop as she was arguing against the government for an initiative that the government did. So it's still trying to have those students part of it. The expectation is that they still need to keep up with their schoolwork. And just how we fit those needs is kind of very unique to every teacher. There's been no mandate that everybody has to do it a certain way. It's whatever best fits the teacher's expertise and comfort level.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Pat, how are they handling that at your school?
So it's pretty similar. Physical education's another story, but basically they have equal amount of assignments in core classes that they can do online. Also, you got to realize like AP is really big right now, so a lot of our kids are just out of school because they're doing the AP and exams in the middle of the night. So a lot of our kids, so let's say they have an AP exam on Tuesday at 1 a.m. So they would get Monday off as well as Wednesday off. So there's been a lot of missing students this week. So it's been a little weird, but basically from what I understand, the core classes just create assignments or material that can be viewed through Classroom. So it's easily accessible. A lot of times, like you said, they'll have one of their friends just pull out their laptop and Google Meet them in so they can be part of the lesson. I mean, I used to do that in college sometimes when I had to go to a conference or something. I'd have someone Skype me in. So that's been useful. For PE, I've been kind of fortunate. The only kids that aren't here are the seniors who have kind of just, I'm going to do my exams and then I'm going to go play golf for the rest of the week because they're done. So I've been fortunate, you know how seniors go, like once you're done, you're done. You don't have to come back to school till graduation. So I only had a couple of seniors that wouldn't come back. So they were already finished. I did some online summative assessments with them to make sure they had a full grasp on everything we learned this year, not only in online learning, just to make sure, because they were gone so long, that we could do something collaboratively to give them that understanding and review on different topics that we did. I mean, we do formative all year, but I just wanted to make sure they had some concrete end of the year stuff. So I didn't just say, you're a senior, good job. I wanted them to really be engaged and whatnot. So we did that. And then they are on their senior week. So they're done. That's about it for me, though. I haven't, like I said, at my school, most of the kids came back. But you also have to realize Hanoi or Vietnam's cases are super low. And we haven't had a case in over a month. So I think it's a very different situation.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions for anybody else before we move to our final topic? All right.
I just wanted to say thank you to both of you for answering. Just had to go for a second.
No problem. This last one's all about identifying our hurdles and opportunities. So some of the things to walk away with is like, what are some hurdles that you're going to be moving forward with? What are some opportunities for growth? Do we throw the baby out with the bathwater with this e-learning now that we're back, or do we still embrace it and keep it with us? Because one of the things I found as a positive experience was e-learning worked for some students. It didn't work for all, but it worked for some. And if it worked for them, why would we get rid of it instantaneously? I think it's an avenue worth exploring, and it's been something I've been talking to my administration about, but that could be an example of an opportunity moving forward in education. What opportunities has this experience granted us? And how we're going to do this is going to be really simple. We're just going to kind of do it as a one and done type chat. So you're going to take a moment to create kind of short phrases to describe your hurdles or opportunities. So things like limitations, where you could talk about things like the social distancing, the lack of equipment, what sort of things can be limiting you. The unknown could be for hurdles. What are some of your phrases that you would use to describe your hurdles, or even the opportunities, like e-learning opportunities for students that would require to actually blossom in this? What are some of the opportunities and hurdles moving forward? And what are some of the things that you kind of can add on as we keep going on? Patty.
Awareness. I'll dive into that at the cross chat, but that's what I really want to talk about.
All right, I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that. I just got to go run off quickly here for 30 seconds.
This wasn't part of the deal. Where are you going?
I got to go turn on my oven.
You can't leave me dude, you're prepping dinner? This is a bunch of crap right now, dude. All right, so I guess I'm in charge. So if you have any questions, ask me. What are you cooking?
Roast beef.
I want some roast beef.
Roast beef with whipped potatoes
Oh, wow. I'm coming over.
and grilled asparagus.
I'm on my boat right now, dude. Think they'll let me in?
No.
Oh, well, next time.
Well, even like a hurdle I have right now is if I leave, I can't even come back in Macau.
Yeah.
Even if you were a full-born Macanese resident, you're thrown in a hotel room. But if you're not, they just like, see ya.
They won't let you do it at home?
Nope, not anymore.
I actually did get quarantined because I went to Bali for spring break. I just wanted to get out, and I grew up in Indonesia, so I wanted to go surfing. And then when we got back, they announced that anyone that traveled anywhere had to quarantine. So I had to test and everything. That test is brutal, dude. When they shove it up your nose, it sucks.
We had to do that with all the teachers, and I was laughing while they were doing it because it's the most uncomfortable. It doesn't hurt. It's uncomfortable.
Flashbacks.
It's like
Random question.
Tickled.
Yes.
Where'd you surf in Bali?
So I usually go to Uluwatu because they have the bigger waves there, but you have to get a car for the day and whatnot.
Yeah.
I also I surf in Canggu with my buddy. The waves are crowded, but there's a couple of good breaks there. Seminyak and Kuta, I'm not a big fan of those places.
But they're so busy. Like Double Six is always so stacked. I was just trying to find different places
I feel like
to go.
I'm too old to go there. I used to go there on spring break as a high schooler, so I'm scared I'll run into like actual just kids that are on spring break. I steer away from there.
All right, I need some new surf spots. So
yeah, Uluwatu is really good, and then Canggu, like the lifestyle in Canggu, I think you just love, so I go there.
sorry, just to hijack that because obviously travel is gonna happen soon. I'm dreaming.
So Chris, I was gonna maybe kick it off with you. What are some hurdles and opportunities you see going back, especially unique to you, or it could be just in general? So what are some hurdles and opportunities?
I guess for me, we have super limited space at school. We basically have one smallish kind of volleyball court, and then we have an indoor auditorium that's not actually a gym. It's just a space that we use for assemblies and things like that. So I guess the biggest hurdle is always been space at my school, and now that we have to kind of social distance kids in the already limited space we have is super tough. So then again, I guess where they said that kids wearing masks could be a bit closer to each other, don't have to social distance, but then again, we're outside and it's super hot. So yeah, I guess heat and space for the hurdles. And then again, the equipment, just trying to, our school didn't make very strict rules about equipment, but still you don't want kids sweating and then just sharing rackets or sharing whatever it is. And then first day we were back, I know some of the high schoolers were back and they were just there in a circle, 10 of them doing bumps and sets with one volleyball. So I already thought then, oh goodness, what's happening here? I guess then opportunities, and I know a lot of people have been talking about this, and I guess it's made me think a lot during this time of being away from school and listening to Pat's podcast and I've been doing a couple of webinars and stuff. And just, I know a lot of people are talking about just putting the E back into, PE. And I guess that's made me think a lot during this time, how to do that more often, because I guess sometimes you might be busy with a unit, or you might be just teaching games with, I don't know, do the kids know what's happening, or, do they know the reason behind it? And I guess just made me think a bit more how I can put that, just for them to understand what we're doing, what they're learning out of this, and the why behind it. Yeah. So I guess that's opportunity that I think that's come out of this for me.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that, the E and PE part. I won't jump in right now, but I love that part. Patrick's got his hand up like he needs to go to the bathroom.
I'd like to follow up, man. I'd like to go next. So with the EMP, I think when I said awareness, I think that's one of the positives right now, because I think a lot of physical educators are really, I think they do it in their practice, but publicly they're really preaching about how important the education portion is, how it's not just fitness and all of that. And but I also think parents and communities are starting to understand how essential not only physical education is, but recess is as well, because they're experiencing it firsthand. My kids are at home all day. They need to move. They need to get. So for the schools that don't have that much recess or stuff like that, I think they're going to start to see the value in it. And maybe parents are even going to speak up and say, we need more time for recess. We need more time for movement and stuff like that. The hurdles for me are more on a personal level. And you kind of touched on it before. So basically, my wife had to get surgery, like routine surgery, but she's fine. But she went to Bumrungrad in Thailand because that's one of the best hospitals in Asia. Then she got stuck in Thailand and she couldn't get back. So she went back to the States. And I haven't seen her for 3 months and I have to do a move. So I'm packing up a house, Skyping her every time I pack up a room to make sure I'm doing it right, make sure I'm giving away the right stuff, shipping the right stuff. But on top of that, just the uncertainty of switching jobs without, I was talking to Jace about this. What if, because I am moving to China and I'm really stoked about the school and everything. I can't wait. But what if I can't start? I got to do online. Like that is a really stressful way to meet my students, my colleagues and stuff like that. So that's definitely an obstacle. It's in the forefront of my mind right now. And I was talking about how can you really get that human connection and that dynamic when you've never met each other before and you got to start through a video. So those are mine.
All right. Thanks, Pat. Anybody want to follow up? And
Yeah, I'll follow up because I understand 100%, Pat. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel in the whole relationships with the people you're working with and the students. And you can get through online learning with that, but when you haven't got anything to start off with, yeah, that's going to be a huge challenge. I mean, I put down the hurdles of getting out of South Africa and then getting into Indonesia as a couple of them. Yeah, so I don't exactly understand it, but fortunately I do have my wife here and like we're together as a family. So yeah, that makes it easier in many ways, but there are challenges when you've got to do it on your own. Sometimes that's easier too. So,
right. So the concern I have though, to follow up to you is I probably would have a higher chance of getting into China if I stayed here, but my wife already went home. So I'm going to go back to the States and I'm wondering, with all the back and forth between the United States and China, if we're going to be, not because of things that are being said, but the States has a crazy amount of cases, so they could definitely be red flagged even if China opens its borders. So those are the kind of things I'm worried about.
Yeah, there's certainly a huge amount of uncertainty with it all, and that sort of adds to the stress. And yeah, definitely. One of the other hurdles I've sort of noticed is that, particularly with kids, when we have our students of concern, once they fall behind in online learning, most of them, they give up and they just keep falling behind. And I understand that it's easier just to quit and go and play computer games than to worry about trying to catch up. And you know, and the support you can't, even as a teacher, it's very difficult to give the support. And the parents at home, I think that's been one of the pluses plus one of the hurdles is, you know, you have some incredibly high functioning parents who are running multinational corporations within regions, and they're trying to do that. Plus they don't have any, and then so the husband may be that person and mum's left with the kids, but mum has minimal English as well. So, you know, so there's lots of hurdles, I think, for the students because of their particular situations. I mean, fortunately, most have internet, but that can also be one of the big hurdles. I think opportunities are that it's given, we have to go back to think about, okay, how can we go back to the basics of play and get the kids out there active? What ways can we do that, particularly when we've had the online learning? And we're lucky in South Africa, although we're not allowed outside, most people live in houses with big yards. So the number of people that were doing laps around their house, but when you live in Asia, which I've done, you know, probably most of my teaching, that isn't necessarily an opportunity, one of the things that you can do. So the innovation that can come out of that, but also I think for schools, I think this is an opportunity to, if schools really, and education is really true about being innovative, you know, this is a time when they can actually make those changes. I mean, I know my own, I've got twins in grade 10 and, you know, they sit there and say, well, I can get this work done in 3 days and I don't have to sit there and listen to the teacher blurb on. So, you know, it is an opportunity there within education to change if they're willing to make those changes. So, yeah.
I think you made a really powerful statement there that if they're willing to change, I think this whole thing really opens up the whole concept of education right now is designed to meet 20th century needs, but we left the 20th century 20 years ago. And how is this going to look in the 21st century? Anyone else want to follow up after John? All right.
I'll go.
Great.
Echoing John's, like the opportunity for schools and education institutions to take that innovative step is a massive opportunity. And for those that are leading edge schools and leading the way, if they take that brave step into the unknown, what benefits it may have for 21st century learning and giving an education which is relevant to today rather than, you know, a century old. So I'd echo those opportunities. But also acknowledging, Pat and John, the challenges that you guys definitely have and doing it tough right now. So I definitely feel your
Not fun
pain.
if there's no challenge, Sarah. We'll be after it, dude. Thank you. I appreciate that. I just wanted to say one thing real quick, Jace, before we continue, because I'm really loving everything. If you guys could do me a favor, before you leave this chat tonight, if you could either put your Twitter or a contact to keep in touch, because I'd like to check in with you guys and stuff like that to see how everything's going.
Sure
I think
can.
that's
If we already follow each other on Twitter, don't worry about it, but maybe the other educators would want to get in touch with you too. So I just wanted to say that.
Sure.
Jace, hey, Mr. Roast Beef, the floor is yours again.
I hadn't finished. I'd only just got started.
Yeah.
Oh, did you, sir? I got excited. My apologies.
You did get excited. I said your name. That was the big mistake. I shouldn't have brought it up.
Chris is like, yep.
Opportunities then. So the opportunities I had written down was technology, the use of technology, especially for teachers who haven't used it before. It's been a great learning curve for them, and they may not say it like that, but it has been a great learning curve to introduce technology for those who haven't been using it. Awareness, as Pat said, I've run a parent workshop like a parent coffee break meeting, giving them the awareness of how important physical education is beyond the physical activity, beyond the physical side of things, but the health and awareness with the mental, social, emotional sides of things as well, trying to get them to see how it's interconnected and integrated into phys ed. And I think it's really nice to have the opportunity to bring that awareness to our communities, but also to other teachers as well, who, as Chris had said, we've been focused a lot on the physical, or perhaps have been focused on the physical, but an opportunity for us to focus on the health and well-being of our students as well. So those are the opportunities. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, I have to go. This is super interesting, but I have, every Sunday we talk with the whole family, my family in Spain at 4, and my kids are like being independent with the iPad, but it's just like they're coming in and out. So sorry.
Oh no, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming, Letty. We're really happy you made it.
I love it. I love everything. You guys are amazing. Really cool. Thank you. And sorry, but I just have to, sometimes, you know, parents, family. Bye.
Bye, Letty.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Can I say something? Just following on what Sarah said. Like we send our school sent a survey out to parents. I think we were about 10 weeks in, just getting feedback about our distance learning. And one comment that really stuck to me, one of our senior leadership team, she shared the responses with me. And one thing that one of these parents said, it was a grade 3 parent, I don't know who, saying that, what they've learned from this is that they can see that subjects like art and PE it shouldn't be in school. Kids can just do it online. And I was like, whoa. And then like following on what you said, Sarah, how do we like let our communities know like the importance of it? How do we get that out there, I guess, is what I struggle with sometimes.
Advocating for our programs, and
yeah,
I've been doing that through workshops and writing articles for school magazines, and kind of just, it is educating our community, because a lot of our community still believe physical education to be run 10 laps around the field and do this and drop down and give me 20, and it's just not like that anymore. But the parents that we have, certain generation, that's what PE was to them. And so that's what they believe that their children still experience. And as educators, that's our opportunity to go, hey, well, actually, we're doing this, and this is what it looks like now. And if you're more than welcome to come and have a look.
No, I think you said, Sarah, and like, if you guys have ever spoken to me in person or ever seen or been to one of my sessions before, like besides that, I'm an advocate of going against that traditional mindset, doing everything I possibly can to not only break that stereotypical mold, that idea that it's not just a drop and give me 20. There's so many other things that we're doing that people can't do. Like, there's a reason why they're specialists. There's a reason why. And I go back to this example of one of my good friends when I first started teaching. He was a science math teacher. He was asked to teach one class of PE 10. And at the end of the year, he's like, if I teach that again, I'm quitting. And it takes a special type of person to make it a meaningful experience. And I think all of us in this room are doing what we can to go against that kind of stereotypical mold that's set out in front of us, just by simply being here on a Sunday and having those conversations.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess for me, something to, sorry, Pat, to just, I guess you have to take into consideration where you are, because we have a massive Vietnamese school right next to us. And my bike, we stop our bikes just next to their field where they have PE. So I guess if I think that this could have been a Vietnamese mom or dad, and this Vietnamese school, the PE teachers they just have that stereotypical lessons. So kids would line up in lines of 20 in a line, 1 meter apart, about 50 to 70 kids, and they would just be standing and doing lift your leg, just like soldiers. So I'm thinking like this could be a Vietnamese parent that just think, yeah, that's our PEs and we can do this online.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, I just wanted to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, we have some free time. Could I check out those articles you said you wrote?
Sure. They're on Twitter, so I'll send it over to you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Called Beyond the Physical.
So just from everything that we've been talking about and everything that's out there, like, there's a lot of good hurdles, but then the one thing that I'm hearing from everybody is this experience has not only been challenging, but also positive and growth oriented. We've all grown better because of this, and there's things we've all learned from this experience. There's all things that we're taking away from it. And for me, I know it would be a big shame if we lost all that moving forward. And just the advocating, like, even hearing from Chris, like, parents like, well, why didn't you pee? Like, kids can do it on their own. It's like, you can't. You can be active. You can move on your own. That's easy. But understanding the why behind it and developing at a pace that's developmentally appropriate, those come from experts. Those come from specialists, people who are trained in that. And that's kind of like a nice little segue into kind of like our last thing to kind of let you guys take away and walk away with, is what would the new generations of teachers look like? So this is just like a little walkway. This more is to kind of like be reflective in the part of having you think about this outside and just being a little bit reflective on this conversation. So undoubtedly, this is potential to just change how we approach education. Now, what would the new educator post 2020 look like moving into the education field? Like, what type of resume would they have? So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do, I made one up here. I drew it. First off, I'm a horrible artist, so I do apologize. But I kind of wrote up like, what would that resume be for that post-COVID teacher? What would they be able to be able to do, and especially for physical education? So what skills would they have to have? What experiences would they have to have? And what qualities would you like them to have as well? So I'm just kind of want to share with you mine. So first off, here's his picture. Not every resume has a good picture. One of it is a smartphone. One of it's a nice smiling person. Because I feel moving forward, just having a digital presence, we need, like, that's going to be part of our lives moving forward. And I feel like schools that are innovative are going to go that way. But then here's our post-COVID teacher, some of our experiences. So online learning obviously should be a must, and also planning and play. How do we get kids to just play again? How do we emphasize playing and learning, but then also understanding the why behind it? And it's actually towards the bottom of my quick resume. Some of our skills, so digital literacy, I think that's something that we've all developed in this time. I know talking with other teachers, just using technology, what does it look like moving forward? Just having that kind of higher sense of digital literacy and digital awareness. Moving forward, so creativity, putting the why we move back into PE. So putting the E back in PE, why are we doing this? The purpose behind it. What's the point of having a PE teacher if we're not addressing the importance and the purpose behind it? What separates us from a YouTube video? Because right now, like, that's where a lot of parents are saying, like Chris had that, like, what separates us from being a YouTube clip? And that's really what our importance is. And then what's the bottom one? Build and maintain relationships. I found, like, for me, just like maintaining digital relationships with students has been crucial. But at the bottom there, and I talked to you guys about this before, but like the whole concept, like what physical education is, and that's my physical education matrix, where we have the top circles movement, our bottom circles are physical literacy and sport literacy, health and wellness literacy. How do we hit all those things as an educator? Like, we can easily focus on the movement with YouTube videos, but how to develop the understandings and the behaviors behind, like, the wellness, the health, physical literacy, and sport literacy development. So that's just a quick little example of what mine looks like. So the one thing I'm going to ask from you guys, like, as kind of like to wrap up and to kind of reflect about it, is just maybe throw that out there. Like, what would that 21st century post-COVID teacher look like? What would that resume look like? You could do a much better job using Canva if you like, or another platform. I think the crayon on scribbling.
I love the crayon, man.
I might have stolen someone's crayon bag.
Oh, you Elsa'd it, dude.
But that's one thing I kind of would wish everybody to kind of share with and reflect on after this conversation, because there's a lot of things that were said, a lot of good points that were brought up, and just to be reflective, like, how would that look like moving forward in our profession? So kind of like a little bit of a reflective activity.
Are we doing it now, or are we gonna post it?
You can do it on your own. I'm not gonna do it now because we've gone over our time, and I also want to respect everybody's Sunday.
Right.
So thanks for joining. I do appreciate everybody joining. We had that one person who was there. She messaged me, emailed me. She's having trouble with her internet, and she felt sad that she couldn't be part of it. But I really appreciate the conversations and the open and honesty that everybody had, and the vulnerability of people just talking about their struggles, their frustrations, their obstacles, their hurdles, what they feel things are going to look like. And I do appreciate everybody having this open and honest conversation. So for me, it's been a great experience, and thank you for joining. Pat, do you want to have anything to kind of say to wrap up for you?
Yeah, I think it was actually kind of cool. It was a small group because we really got to know each other a little bit more, and Jason and I were able to dive into the conversation more than we planned on, but I kind of wanted to anyway. So that was a great opportunity. And also, with your permission, I think this would be really helpful for other people. So we'll probably post a link to the recording on Twitter. And then we'll tag you if you are on Twitter so people can collaborate with you and stuff like that. But I think you all have a really good perspective. And the only thing I wanted to follow up on was talking about the parents that say that, why can't we just do online videos or whatever? I think when we're talking about, like, for me, the resumes and stuff like that, we need to remember, and I know you guys do, but there's another awareness thing. It's not just physical. Like, so we need to create social dynamics, learning how to communicate with each other, reading body language, stuff like that. So there's so many facets that I think we all know and do on a regular basis, but we do need to bring that awareness. Like, this is why these kids have these relationships at this age. This is why certain kids know how to handle different situations, because they're learning social cues at a very young age in physical education. So that's, I commend you all for using that in your practice. And I think just more people need to realize that that's a massive part of our job.
I always kind of call that the hidden curriculum part of physical education. Is some curriculums, some government programs don't state about communication, body language, leadership skills, and those are all things that you kind of learn as you play with each other in a social dynamic. So that's just kind of like addressing that hidden curriculum, which, yeah, it's easy to be Joe Wick and make a workout video and have kids move on YouTube. It's not easy to be an educator that focuses on the education piece. And I appreciate that everybody in this room is those people who want the education back in physical education.
It's how can we create that, having that hidden curriculum and uncovering it for everyone to see. And if we can do that, I think we might get a little bit more respect. I think that's one thing that we definitely get pulled up on a few times. Oh, you just play games. And the amount of times I hear that from parents and from colleagues, and the amount of people I have not slapped in the face. Joey Fife did a really great job of mind, body, and heart. You know, take care of your mind, take care of your heart, take care of your body. I really appreciated that. And so I integrated that into the online learning with the kids to let them choose what are you going to take care of today.
That's awesome.
That's great.
That was really nice.
I
So
think
another good resource.
I think to break away from that stereotype, I know, like, if you guys ever seen Mr. Woodcock, that movie with Billy Bob Thornton, I think Pat and I need to do our own version of it, but something that's a little bit more realistic. It is an entertaining movie, but it is actually
playing Woodcock, dude.
What's that?
Who's playing Woodcock?
Hey, you're gonna be Woodcock. You're gonna be that. You're gonna be him. But
that's the point of movies, right? It's entertainment. It's not real life. It's entertainment, and people blur those lines.
Well, exactly. I wanted to thank everybody again for coming today and taking the time to have these conversations. And again, putting yourself out there to have something that maybe puts you in a vulnerable place. But I appreciate everybody taking the time and being part of the conversation. It's really powerful for me today, I know for sure.
Thank you for organizing and putting together, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Well, this is a pleasure for us. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday, and whatever your week looks like, I hope it goes rock solid awesome.
I put in the chat group, the chat group, just in the chat, the link to the Beyond the Physical.
I saw it, already linked it out.
Thanks. It's an old one because nothing else has been published yet, and I'm not allowed to share, obviously, photos of students.
I'm definitely going to dive into it this evening, so thank you very much.
It's not long, it's very short.
Well, I'm going to quickly dive into it.
But thank you, I really appreciate you guys taking the time.
All right,
No problem.
John, good luck with the move.
Thanks, guys.
Best luck moving everybody from South Africa.
Thank you. And thanks to you guys for putting this together. It's been great.
Awesome.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
All right, have a good
All
day.
right.